Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Neil Perry, and today in this webinar we'll be looking at how you can archive an Office 365 account or multiple Office 365 accounts using the MailStore email archiving server. So just before I get going, I just want to go through, cover what we're going to cover today. I'm going to start off with a look at just some general overview of MailStore, what the product is, just in case you're completely new to the software. Then I'll focus a little bit more on specific features that are relevant to Office 365 customers. Then the main part of the webinar, I'm going to go through a demonstration. I'm going to start by looking at the very basic way of just archiving a single mailbox, and then how we can actually utilize the ability to archive multiple mailboxes for a whole site. We'll have a little look at compliance and why that's relevant, and some changes. Getting a little bit of a preview here of version 9 of MailStore and some changes there that maybe make your decision on how to make your archiving compliant or not. And then finally, if we've got a bit more time there, we can look at some more advanced mailbox management techniques, managing the size of the mailboxes, but also potentially managing different users' mailboxes in different ways. Then we'll wrap up with just a few next steps where we can just highlight what else you can do with MailStore and where to take it next. And finally, there'll be some time at the end for any questions and answers. So if I start with an overview of MailStore, slide's been a little bit slow today. There we go. MailStore is a Windows-based piece of software. It's not a hosted solution. It's not, it's designed to be installed on a Windows server. Now, that Windows server can be on-premise in a customer site, or it can be a private cloud scenario where you actually install it on, say, a Microsoft Azure platform. There is also a service provider edition. I'm not going to cover that today. That's specifically for resellers that are looking to host MailStore for multiple customers. Today's focus is going to be on a single installation for an end customer, either on site or in the cloud. MailStore supports a wide range of different mail platforms. It's not just for Exchange, it's not just for Office 365. Any mail platform, including our MDman mail solution or Google Mail, there's lots of different mail solutions out there that support it. Anything that supports POP3 or IMAP as well as email clients. So if you've got mail in multiple locations and you're trying to bring it all together, then MailStore is an ideal way of archiving that mail. When it archives mail, it deduplicates it and compresses attachments at the same time. So the actual storage requirement in MailStore is usually an awful lot less than the existing mail platform it's coming from. So if you've got a lot of users that tend to email the same thing to different users of a network, then you'll find there'll be lots of duplication there, and it will benefit from the deduplication a lot more. Also, if you find that you're emailing attachments and they get forwarded on and forwarded on and forwarded on, then really there's only one need to archive one copy of that attachment, even if it's in completely new email messages. So again, you'll benefit from the compression. From a user's point of view, there's multiple methods for accessing the archive. Users have direct access to their own archive, and that's one of the main benefits. It allows them to find and search for messages of their own messages. And they can do that through either an Outlook add-in, so if the day-to-day use is through Outlook, that's an ideal way of adding a search bar, advanced search, and a capability to browse their own archive directly within Outlook. Or if you prefer, there's a web-based interface that can be accessed either in a main browser or through a mobile device as a sort of mobile app. So even when you're on the move, you need access to your email that's only in MailStore, then it's very easy to do that. And another key feature is the ability to centralize any existing PST-based archives. We tend to find that a lot of businesses, historically, they've gone down the path of storing archives in local PST files. MailStore allows you to bring all those into one archive, so users existing archives, they no longer need to think about joining multiple PSTs and MailStore. It's all just in one location. If we look at some of the main benefits for Office 365 users, a key one really is compliance. When you go to a cloud platform like Office 365, users are in complete control of their messages. And yes, in Office 365 accounts, it stores messages in the deleted items for 30 days, but after that, users can, the messages can get deleted. So a lot of the time we're speaking to customers where they want this guarantee that they've got another copy of all of these messages stored. So all communication is kept, and that's very important for business needs. And that's a key feature for having a separate archive in the first place. A totally different reason for maybe looking at MailStore is for migration, especially if you're moving from, say, a large Exchange platform and you're then thinking about going to Office 365. That first step of moving all of that mail from Exchange into the cloud is going to be quite a painful one. There's potentially an awful lot of historic mail there. Well, why move it all? It makes a lot more sense to archive that mail into MailStore. During that process, you can remove from Exchange anything that's older than, let's say, a year. That's typical sort of amount of time. And then you're only left with a year's worth of email to then migrate to Office 365. Some customers take that right up to sort of 3 months. They do want to move some mail, but they don't want to move it all. So because MailStore can archive for multiple platforms, it doesn't matter if you're moving from Exchange, from MDemon, from another hosted mail platform, you can bring it all into MailStore and then only migrate what you want up to 365. Once you've actually got mail into MailStore, it allows users to be given access to search across multiple archives, or multiple accounts, I should say. So if you're in the business where you do need to monitor or find email threads that have possibly gone to multiple people, it's very easy to add permissions to users to do that. It's not so easy in 365 to sort of monitor people's accounts and find those messages as easily. Another reason it's probably more specific to hosted Exchange platforms rather than 365, but the ability to actually reduce the cloud storage. MailStore does actually, when it's archived, it has the option to delete old messages, and you can choose that time frame. So you can have it so it only stores a year's worth of mail in Office 365, and that way you're keeping your users' mailboxes low, but yet the users still have full access to all of their email through MailStore. And then a final reason is sometimes people just like that peace of mind of having a local copy, or they work in a business where the regulation requires them to have a local access. Cloud solutions are great functionality-wise. Often a lot of the back-end technology is hidden from you, so you're not 100% sure where that data is. If for legal reasons, you sometimes have to guarantee that you've got a copy in a UK location. Sometimes it's just pure peace of mind that you want to know as a business that should everything go wrong, and I have a backup plan. I have a copy of all of my messages from all time in a platform that I can export to standard mail technologies, to IMAP accounts, to PST, to SMTP servers. You've got a lot of options when mail's in MailStore to get that mail out again. So I just want to quickly talk about the topology of using Office 365. And this should be, everyone who's used Office 365 understands it is a cloud platform. The whole concept is that you can access it from anywhere in the world. Whether you've got several users on site using Outlook and they're all connected, which sort of takes over from the classic approach of having a local on-premise mail server, or you're out on the network, all the mail is stored in the cloud. So how does MailStore fit into this model? Well, this is where I'm going to talk about installing MailStore on-premise on the customer's site. Usually they will still have a server there, maybe a 2012 Foundation server, something that's a local file server. Alternatively, you could, like I say, put that in a hosted platform if you prefer, but to keep things simple, we're just going to talk about having an on-premise server. So MailStore gets installed there, and how does it access these Office 365 accounts? Well, in exactly the same way that Outlook does. It connects in through the Outlook Web Access Protocol over HTTPS. And in fact, with version 9, which you'll see a little bit later on, I'll be showing you how it is doing exactly the same. It's pulling in email, it's synchronizing that email, and then from then on, it's kind of monitoring those accounts for changes and pulling in messages as they arrive or as they get moved into different locations. So it's almost like having multiple Exchange users running Outlook on the same machine, all accessing the mailboxes at the same time. So once the mail's in MailStore, how do users get access to that mail? Well, again, it can host, well, it does host its own services over HTTPS. So for internal users, they can point their Outlook add-in, the MailStore Outlook add-in, directly to the local server and connect to the port it uses is 8462. For external users, you just need to make that one port visible on the internet, and then any external user of Outlook or a web user or mobile user can go directly to their MailStore account. So it doesn't matter if you're working with users that are roaming, they can still get full access to their archive. One of the things to bear in mind with Office 365 specifically, this is something that I came across early on, and it's always changing, is it does kind of depend on what package you get as to exactly what options you have when you can archive those accounts. The very basic packages, the sort of £3-4 a month type packages, are quite limited. They're designed to be accessed by one user and one user only. So the sort of thing that you may be lacking is the application integration. Now this allows you to impersonate one user with another user, and this will use this a little bit later on when I show you the demonstration for one user to access multiple mailboxes. If you just have basic accounts, you may not have that function. So it's worth bearing that in mind when you're choosing the 365 product. Sometimes I've had customers say I've had to upgrade to a more expensive package to allow for this functionality. The other thing that on the large sites is the ability to use Active Directory synchronization. Managing users, which is the first thing we'll actually show in the demonstration, but managing users is important. If you've only got 5 or 6 users, then everything can be done manually. That's not a problem. If you've got 500 or 600 users, then you're probably going to want to synchronize that with a local Active Directory. That functionality, generally speaking, is only in the larger products for 365. I think it's in the mid-sized business products and above. Having said that, I'm sure you may be watching this video a few weeks or months down the line. Microsoft have a habit of changing the names and the functionality of these products all the time. So best thing to take away from this is check with the site exactly what functionality is available. But the two things that we're really interested in are application integration for mailbox impersonation and Active Directory synchronization. So this is where we'll move on to the demonstration, and if I just switch to my virtual machine here, which just timed out, so just bear with me while I log back in. So what we have here is a fresh MailStore version 9 installation. And I'm going to start with a very basic scenario where we're using a very simple Outlook 365 single account. And how do we actually archive that single account? Well, the first thing we need to do with the MailStore installation is we need to set up our users, because it's the users that create local archives that we can then archive into. So if we go into the administration tools, users and privileges, users, you can see here that all I've got is my first account, the admin account that's generated automatically. So I'm going to now need to create an account. Now to start with, if it's a very small deployment or if you're just trialing the software and you want to set things up quickly, we can just create a default account. So I'm just going to create one called James, because I know that I have a user called James in Office 365 that I want to archive. And you can see here that really it's just the basic information. The logon name is really all that we need. Yes, we can create a full name. I'm going to use just the basic MailStore integrated method. That means it's an internal account in MailStore. It's not synchronized with anything else. I would therefore need to define a password for the account so that when James wants to log in, he can log in with a password. If I don't give it a password, then James wouldn't be able to log in. The only other thing I really should do here is define an email address. It's not so important for a single user account method, because at no point does it have to query this, but it's good practice. So I know that I have a test Office 365 account set up, and the email address for that is this one. And the default settings for what privileges James has on the account, fine. He's allowed to log into MailStore, he can change his own password, he's allowed to archive email, and he has access to one archive that will be created that's going to be called James. That's absolutely fine. So we now have a user called James, and there will be therefore an archive for James. There's nothing in that archive yet because we haven't archived anything. Now I can actually create an archive job to go and get the contents of that Office 365 account. So under the archive email section, this is where we create profiles. So I actually want to create an Exchange profile. This method, this Microsoft Exchange method, is using Outlook Web Access. So that works for a local Exchange server, a hosted Exchange server, or indeed Office 365. So your options here are to do a single mailbox, which is what we'll do first, multiple mailboxes, public folders, we won't really touch on that today, or we can do journaling, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And when we choose single mailbox, you'll notice that one of the first things, apart from the access method, which we'll leave alone, one of the first things I need to know is the host that we're connecting to. Now, this is often a bit hidden from us in Office 365. So MailStore have made a very useful tool for us. And if I actually go onto the MailStore website, I didn't notice. If you ever, I'll put a link to this on the recorded video. But if you go to the MailStore help page and go right down to the bottom, you'll notice that there's this MailStore Exchange Auto Discover tool. And when you download that zip file, if I just go to the desktop, I'll have to just close this a minute. If you run that zip file, it contains an executable. And what this allows you to do is type in the email address of an Office 365 or any Exchange hosted mail account. So if we put in James in here, we put in his password, and it'll auto-discover the actual Exchange server that is needed for us to connect to. Takes a little bit of time, but then it should come back with the actual server name. There we go. So the actual server that I need to connect to is outlook.office365.com, which, to be honest, once you know that, it's pretty much always the same. But if you're using a different hosted Exchange platform, that can be very useful to find out the actual server you need to connect to. So if we go back to, oops, wrong one. If we go back to MailStore and we set up that profile again, it's a Microsoft Exchange profile. We're going to connect to a single mailbox. I'm going to ignore SSL warnings because occasionally you come across SSL certificates, and it's good practice to do that. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you know it's a server that's using a root trusted certificate. There's this server that we're connecting to. The username in this case is going to be James at that address, which is should have chosen the shorter domain. Is that right? Microsoft.com. The password for James's account, and then hopefully if I click on test, it will tell me if those details are correct. So there you go. It's saying connection could be established successfully. So I know that those account details are fine. Until you get that, there's no point going any further. So if you're on a different server, you might need to double check the host name. One thing I would point out here, it does throw people sometimes. If you've never actually logged into an Office 365 account before, if it's a brand new account, this won't work until you've at least visited it through the web interface normally once. They get provisioned with a temporary password, and you have to go in through the website first, give it a new password before you can then access it through this method. So if we go to next, what the options are here is to say, well, which folders do I want to archive? So if I click on the three dots here, I can include or exclude specific folders, and I can choose them. If I click on Add, it will now go and read in the folder structure, and it can show me, if I had lots of folders, I could choose specific folders to archive. Generally speaking, most people are wanting to archive the whole folder structure, so we don't need to configure anything here. But it's worth bearing in mind if you have, certain special requirements where you might think, well, actually, I don't want to archive these folders, or this specific task only wants to archive certain folders, then you have that flexibility. A little bit further down, I tend to say always archive messages if they're unread or not. There's no real logical reason not to archive them if they're unread. And there is an option to only archive old messages. Personally, I prefer to archive everything. It just means that users, when they're looking in the archive, they don't have to sort of make that decision of is a message new or old. Everything is in the archive. And a little bit further down is this delete option here is the option that if you were wanting to manage the mailbox and purge the mailbox, that's where you would define, the age of messages that you want to delete. I'm going to leave that on not delete anything, and whilst you're trialing the software, I always recommend don't delete anything in the mail platform. It's fine to sort of mirror and copy data, but as soon as you start deleting mail, then you're quite committed then to carry on with MailStore. So if I choose next, the final sort of step is saying where's the target archive? Where does this mail need to go? Well, I'm happy to put that mail into the user James that I created. And that's why I needed to create that user first. Otherwise, where do I store that mail? You can create a new user from here as well. I should have pointed that out. So I'm happy that job's fine. I'm going to run that job after I've completed it, and I don't think there's very much in this mailbox, if anything at all. So it should just connect and very quickly archive it. There you go. So there's one new message there. It's just a nice empty mailbox. So that job's run once quite happily, and if we look in the archive of James, we should see that if we drill down, we can see there's a message in the mailbox. Now, obviously, normally we'd be talking about now archiving thousands and thousands of messages because it's the first time it's been archived. But for this test purposes, I need to keep things nice and quick. At this point, we've run that job once. Really what we want to do is keep that job running automatically. So if we go back to the archive email, choose the job. If you right-click on that job, we can choose automatic. Now, this is a new version 9 feature, if you haven't seen this yet. This allows you to run the job automatically. It will wait it will wait 300 seconds between running the job. So if it runs a job and then finishes, it won't run again for 300 seconds or 5 minutes. Again, and you can put an exclusion on here. Certain times you might find if you've got lots of jobs running that it puts a bit more strain on the network. You might think, well, actually, during busy times, I don't want to run this job, so you might want to put an exclusion in there. Personally, I've not found that the case. I've found that once the jobs are running all the time, that trickling of data has such a low impact on the network that you can run these jobs all day long. So the default settings, if we click OK, that job now is running automatically. It'll be running in the background, bringing in James's mailbox every 5 minutes or thereabouts, and resynchronizing it. So we could do this process and we could add, many extra users doing this, and we'd have exactly that. We'd have an archive synchronizing with all of those individual mailboxes, but it can get a little bit tricky if you've got 10, 15, 20 users. Do you really want to have that many profiles? That's where it's ideal if we can actually use that mailbox impersonation feature of Office 365. So that's what we'll look at next. The first thing I need to sort of point out is what do we need to do in the Office 365 account. Up to now, all I've needed to know is the user's logging details. From now on, I need to set up a special user that has more permissions on many users' mailboxes. So if I switch to this window, hopefully I should have my Office 365 management window open. So if you have this is what is different really about the more premium packages. So if I go into the Administrate Exchange features, and please bear with me, it's not the fastest of virtual machines, this one. There we go. Now, this is all documented if you're trying to make notes. But under permissions, there's the administration roles, and what I need to do here is I need to create a new role. I've actually created it down here called MailStore Impersonation. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but if I edit this role, you'll see that I've named it MailStore Impersonation, given it a description. Now the actual role I've added is called Application Impersonation. So if you're adding a new role, you'd click on the plus symbol and you choose Application Impersonation. I think it's probably going to be deselected because I've already added it. It's a bit sluggish. There you go. Sorry, there's at the top. The very top role is Application Impersonation. That role then needs to be applied to a user. So I've actually created a specific Office 365 user that I've called MailStore. The display name is MailStore Admin, and it's that account that I'm applying the application impersonation to. So effectively, if I log in now as the MailStore account, I can ask for any mailbox of another Office 365 user that's set up under my Office 365 account. So I'll come out of there. That's the important bit. And if you don't have the ability to do that in Office 365, you really are going to have to do the previous method of archiving each individual mailbox one at a time. So with that set up, if we now go back to MailStore, we can actually do a couple of things. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you how we can add multiple users, because at the moment we've only got James as an account. Now, again, I could go through here and I could manually add all of our different users, but if I had hundreds, that's going to be a long-winded task. So the better option is, if I've got a local Active Directory, and this obviously does rely on you having a local Active Directory, then I can sync MailStore to Active Directory using the directory services synchronization. The default options are usually perfectly fine as long as MailStore is installed on a machine that's already in the domain. It's going to pick all this up automatically. And what I've actually done is I've created a group in Active Directory called Archived, a local group, and that group contains all of the users that I want to archive. So if I scroll down a little bit, it's a little bit off the screen, there's the option here to synchronize those users. So by synchronizing, what I've done, I mean, I've not got many in this demonstration, but you can imagine this could now be a table of hundreds of users. It's pulling in all of the users from Active Directory, and more importantly, it's pulling in the actual SMTP email address as well. Now, that is important with the method that we're going to set up in a moment, because effectively it's that email address, that primary email address, that has to match the account in Office 365. So you can see here that the primary email addresses are the correct format. So if I close that synchronization now and I go back into users, I should have all of my users set up. Now you notice that the ones I've just added, the authentication type is directory services. So that means when one of these users logs in, their password isn't stored in MailStore at all. It's actually queried against Active Directory Live. So that's nice synchronization. It means if you change passwords in Active Directory, you don't have to do anything in MailStore. That first James user, because I set that up manually, that's still set up as MailStore integrated. So I'll actually quickly change that, just to point out that you can easily just switch it over to directory services at any time. The account details are the same, so that's absolutely fine. So now that we've got our users, if we go over to the archive jobs, I can leave this job running in the background. That's absolutely fine. That's just going to take care of James's mailbox. But if I want to archive all the other users' mailboxes, then I have to set up a new job. This time it's an Exchange server job. It's a multiple mailboxes job. Now we need the same server, so it's outlook.office365.com, which we could have used the tool to find that. Now I'm going to actually log in as that MailStore account. I think it's going to be MailStore at 365.microsoft.com. The password for the MailStore account. Now, same sort of settings, we can include and exclude specific folders, but this time, because we're talking about multiple accounts, we won't get the option there to choose from. We have to know what they're called, so we'll leave that for now. That's more of an advanced method. I won't be deleting any messages. I effectively just want to archive all of these users' mailboxes, any mail that it finds. Now, this time, I'm now effectively saying, well, which users am I interested in archiving mail for? The default archive all users with a configured email address is absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. If you've got hundreds of users here, you might want to stage this process and maybe only archive a select few users at once, and then come back and edit the job and add a few more users. Sometimes you do that the first time, because the first time you archive these mailboxes, they may contain thousands and thousands of messages. So that time it's going to take a long time. Once you've got that messages into MailStore and everything's synchronized up, then it's going to get faster and faster until it wouldn't be a problem to be archiving all users every time the job runs. There is an option down here as well to synchronize the directory services before archiving. That's quite handy if you ever add any users to AD and you want them to automatically get archived, so you can tick that option there. I'll leave that off for now. So there's my job. It's going to give it the name Exchange Mailboxes. You can label these differently if you prefer, and we'll run the job automatically. Now, hopefully, if I've got my details right. No, I haven't. That's, there we are. There's always a point where something goes slightly wrong. I think that's because my logon details are wrong. Yeah, typically, it's quite a good test, this, but typically, whenever you see all of the accounts error that quickly, it's going to be because the account details are wrong. What's quite nice is from version 9, you can click on here and you can go straight into the actual debug log and find the details of the actual log. And if we go down a little bit further, we should see that we're not getting access on that account. Anyway, so let's go back and actually change the details of that account. Let's just try MailStore. No, so I've got something else wrong. Always the fun of live webinars. Maybe it was the password. .com. I'll run that. Okay, well that's working now. So it probably was just that password, to be honest. That was my mistake trying to do things too quickly. So what we're doing now is we're actually archiving those 5 user accounts at once, and you can see that it's found a lot more messages. I think there's 100 or 200 messages in one of these accounts, so it'll slowly bring those messages in the background. It's a bit unfortunately on this demonstration, the connection's quite slow, so normally you'd expect this to be counting up maybe 2 or 3 messages a second, but because also I'm doing a webinar on the same network, you'll find that this is trickling along. But we can leave that in the background and it'll be archiving all the time. If we go back to the archives now and we refresh them, you should see now that we can they're all starting to fill up. So if I drill down, here's one I know that has a bit more messages in, and you can see that these will build up over time and fill up with the messages. Every time that job is running in the background, if I go back to the job, it's synchronizing new data. Now we'll have to leave it a little while because unfortunately it's probably going to take 5 minutes to catch up. You can always click on this details link as well to see, oh that was the last one, sorry, of it running, but the progress window should be down here somewhere, not that one. There it's progress view, so it's still running in the background quite happily. Now the last thing I wanted to quickly mention here was if anybody's set up MailStore with Exchange or follow the guide for setting up Exchange, they might be thinking, well, what about a journaling job? Because historically, the last sort of thing you would do is you'd set up a new job here and you'd use this final option here, in and outbound email automatically, which is journaling. Now, you can do that with certain hosted Exchange accounts and Office 365 accounts. There is the possibility to have journaling turned on, and journaling will take a copy of all messages received by the server and send it, in the case of Office 365, to an external email account. And you can have then you can configure MailStore to go and collect that external account. And the idea there is that it would be bringing in mail all day long and sorting it for the relevant user. What I've found personally, I mean, that it's no problem doing that. It's just that it's quite a long-winded process to get set up. But with version 9 of MailStore, because these jobs are running all the time anyway, the need to actually normally used to sort of run them once a day, but because they're running all the time, the need to archive them messages before they potentially get deleted, which is the whole purpose of journaling, really, isn't so important. Office 365 accounts, to my knowledge, they did anything that goes into deleted items stays there for 30 days. So effectively, you have got 30 days to collect that message before it can actually be removed off the server. That's a long time. I mean, these jobs are potentially going to be running maybe every 5 or 10 minutes, even on busy servers. Even if you use a deletes an email, it will still get archived. So you could argue you don't need a journal to get a compliant archive at all. And a lot of users that I've found using Office 365, this is exactly what they do. They just run a job in the background that brings in all of the messages all the time, and there's no need to set up journaling as well. Okay. If I just switch back to my slides, just wrapping up. Hopefully it's been useful, that information. Where's my slide? There we go. The next steps, if you haven't already, please download the 30-day trial. If this is all new to you and you've not used MailStore at all, there is a free 30-day trial. It's fully functional. You can do everything I've done today. You can set it up on a machine that's even running Windows 7. It doesn't have to be a server platform by any means. Click on the link here to download that. There are very useful setup guides for all different mail platforms. There's one specifically for Office 365, but if you click on that link there, then it will point you to all of the guides. If you're a reseller, if you're a reseller of ours already, then if you're interested in reselling MailStore as a product, then you just need to add it to your partner profile. Log into your account on zensoftware.co.uk, or click on this link, and you can enable it in the partner profile. If you weren't aware, there is a free not-for-resale license for resellers as well, so that's a definite reason for getting signed up on the partner program. And if you want to, you can also become a MailStore certified archiving specialist. You go through an online exam. If you pass that, then you get an additional discount as well on your partner profile. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully that's been useful. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button and add us to your YouTube subscriptions. Any comments at all, any likes, please share the information, enter your comments below, and thanks very much.